Hi everyone, welcome to Orinda Talks Fantasy and Sci-Fi. I'm your host Orinda, and today we are talking about Avatar: The Last Airbender with Olga Fett. The world is divided into four nations: the Water Tribe, the Earth Kingdom, the Fire Nation, and the Air Nomads. Each respected by a natural element for which the nation is named. Benders have the ability to control and manipulate the elements from their nation. Only the Avatar is the master of all four elements. The ruthless Fire Nation wants to conquer the world, but the only bender who has enough power, the Avatar, has disappeared. Until now. His tribe soon discovered that Aang is the long-lost Avatar. Now, Katara and Sokka must safeguard Aang on his journey to master all four elements and save the world from the Fire Nation. I love the Avatar: The Last Airbender, not only for the story arc, but especially for the true lessons in it. This anime is very well written and is for children nice to watch. There also are lessons to be learned from the series. Our guest today is Olga Vet. Hello, Olga, and thank you for joining me.
Hello.
Welcome. So we're going to talk about today about Avatar: The Last Airbender. Can you tell me in your own words what Avatar is or means for you?
Oh, what it means? Well, childhood basically. So when the show came out in like I don't know the exact year, but I was in middle school during that time, and it was kind of a part of the class. So you had like once a week you had a new episode, and the whole class would talk about it. And I was a bit of a loner back then, so it was nice to be part of the crowd and talk about the show. And well, besides that part of the childhood, it's hard to describe what it means for me because I have like learned so much from the show and from the characters. And yeah, there's so many lessons to take from it. So it also means a lot of things for me. And it's a bit hard to describe actually.
Well, I agree with the lessons because that is one thing I really love about Avatar: The Last Airbender. I really love this animation too because, yeah, the life lessons in it is so good, and I think
Mm-hmm.
children who are watching this can really learn about it, how and keep these lessons for their whole life. What do you like about the storyline?
So the storyline is actually very, very coherent from the get-go. And you will only notice that like when you rewatch the show, because at first you just watch it and you see some storylines develop, but it's only at the end that you realize like there was also some kind of reference to a later point in the story and other things. Can you repeat the question again? I kind of lost it.
Uh, what do you think about the storyline and
Yeah, so the storyline is also very well made. So each character has a lot of screen time. The focus on each character is a bit different for each season, but everyone gets their own share. And well, that's the overall plot line. You have this the leader of the Fire Nation, Ozai, and Aang has to find a way how to defeat him, but his way is very peaceful, and he has a lot of difficulties thinking of even trying to kill him. And I think that point as a major storyline is very important, actually.
so you mentioned Aang just now. Can you tell me
Yeah.
something more about him?
Yeah. So Aang starts as a very naive little boy, and he was actually a monk in an airbender temple, where he just learned, along other children of his age, how to airbend. And they also had like little pets called air bisons. And he was just like a typical happy, naive child. But one day he heard that he is the Avatar. And that was very detrimental to him, and that's why he flew away. But he got stuck in a storm, and then he was frozen for a lot of years. And then he met the whole crowd, and then you see him slowly also develop as an individual, because he has to adapt to the world that has changed a lot since he was frozen away. But you also see him grow up as an individual into a more mature individual, basically. And you see him also trying to understand the views of other people, because he has lived his whole life as a monk, while his completely opposite would be either Zuko or Toph, which have a different way of living their lives because of their culture and also of their personality and their history. And it takes some time for him to adapt to those kind of styles, but eventually he does, and he has a greater understanding of people. And yeah, he's like one of the characters that grows like the most during the whole series. Especially if you compare the first episode against the last one, you can really very clearly see how much he matured. And a little fun fact, I think it's at least in the English one, maybe also in the Dutch, I think also in the Dutch one, is that actually the voice, not the voice, yeah, I will just call it the voice. The voice of Aang is a little boy who actually matures throughout the whole series. So you hear his voice first being very high pitched, and then it gets a bit lower and lower and lower. And I think that's an extra nice touch on Aang.
Yeah, that is nice. So Aang has also sidekicks. Can you talk about that?
Yes, so I'm just gonna start with the waterbender. Well, the waterbender and the brother. So Katara and Sokka. So they actually were out fishing in, I think, either the South Pole or the North Pole. I think they're from the south. And they discovered this piece of ice where Aang was in, and then they are like, "What is this?" And Sokka pokes with a stick almost. And they discovered it's Aang, and they discover, oh, it's the Avatar. And since then, you see already some hints about the personality. So that Sokka is a bit of a, I would say, sort of a womanizer, but he's also, he can also be very mature at times. You see that later on in the show, and you also see that he's also very immature. But it's really situation depending, and he's also very impulsive, basically. And then you have Katara, who is more of the mother type. So she's very caring, very gentle, but she also have like a short fuse at times. So that's sort of his first two friends he meets. Later on, he also, of course, encounters Zuko, which also, like in the later season, also becomes a friend, sort of complicated friend. And Zuko actually has a very difficult history, which is also a bit in line with the Katara and the Zuko history, because their mother was killed by the Fire Nation, and Zuko's mother disappeared. So he only had his dad and his way more talented sister, where he grew up with. And Zuko has also been trying to be the new Fire Nation leader, but one time when he spoke up, he got a massive scar because of his dad on his eye, and he was very traumatized by that. And that's why his father gave him like an almost impossible quest to redeem his honor, basically, as a son of the Fire Lord by getting Avatar. And he was so focused on getting that honor back, and that he kind of lost himself along the way.
Well, he was just a little bit of obsessed, I guess, with catching on.
Bit more than obsessed. It was a bit more than obsessed, but yes, for sure. But that was because he wanted to be accepted by his dad, because he doesn't know better, because he doesn't know who he is except from the prince of the Fire Nation. He doesn't have an own identity yet. He doesn't know it. He lost that when he was very young, basically.
Yeah, and that's why I really like his uncle, because his
Oh,
uncle was the one who also guided him in that mission. And I do think that his uncle has a very good heart of and guiding Prince Zuko to become the man that he will be later.
yeah. So yeah, because Uncle Iroh is like my favorite character ever in this whole universe. Like, I think I speak for the majority of fans. It's like the fave character. Yes, but he's like the he has a very big history as well. Because you know him as a very soft, gentle guy, but in the past he wasn't such a gentle guy. I think he conquered the Earth Nation with a very steady hand, and only at a point where his own son went to war and died, he turned. He turned for the better. He realized what he was doing, and he became a better guy. And along the way, he began seeing Zuko as his son. And that's why he's so protective about him and trying to get and set him on the right way, because he doesn't want to lose a so-called another son of him. He wants the best for Zuko. And this guy has done so much for Zuko in the whole storyline. It's so much. He had like a lot of patience for him and a lot of understanding. Even when Zuko was being very aggressive to him, Aro kept on trying to be there for him. And that is
Yeah,
so really beautiful, actually.
I think that his character is also a little bit of underrated in the whole series.
I would not say that, but continue.
Is this also a character you can identify yourself with, or is there another character in Avatar that you identify yourself with?
Oh, I think I'm a combination of multiple ones, so I can identify with like quite some of them. So, because of my naivety, which is now less than before, but I was very naive and very childish. I also recognize myself in the more nurturing characteristics of Katara. So being sort of mother for some people, like a listening, someone who can actually listen and helps and tries to so-called heal people. But I cannot waterbend sadly enough, but heal in my own way, I would say. But also very impulsive and maybe a little bit aggressive, as Zuko is, and sometimes a bit stupid, like Sokka. And also a bit in Tough, more so because if you look at Tough, because she's a blind girl, and you will automatically think, oh, she's weak. But she's not. She's one of the strongest characters. She's maybe the strongest character of the whole, like the whole universe. And I kind of have the same thing. I have the feeling that when people look at me, they see like a very fragile girl, but actually I want to be seen as a strong person because I feel like a strong person. So I also can sort of relate myself to that. And with Uncle Iroh, is that I try to be there for the people I care about and try to listen to their stories. Even if they're being an ass to me, I try to be there for them. To a certain degree, of course, but yeah. So I can sort of relate myself to at least the main cast quite a lot. And do you also have that you can find some part of yourself in the cast?
I think I probably more with Katana because of Katara because
Yeah.
um I am really like that. And um well, I never thought about that because like I said, I do love the lessons in it, but I
Mm-hmm.
never I would use those episodes and lessons, for example, in the seminars I give, or
Mm-hmm.
try to explain the children certain lessons. But it's not that I can say, okay, I can identify myself with a certain character or something.
Okay. But you
So,
don't have to find yourself completely back in a character. It can also be like little pieces of yourself. Because they like cover a big range of personality traits.
yeah,
These
they do.
characters.
They do.
So they're like almost all of them they actually include. So that's why. But that may be a different question also for you. And you can also ask me if you want to. Is that if you were in this universe of Avatar, would you be a bender and a non-bender? And if you are a bender, which element would you bend and why?
That is a little hard one because I connect myself a lot with the elements and with all the elements. I live with the elements and also, for example, with the moon phases. So um, I do think I would bend all the elements, but more
So
in
Avatar
the
or
way of. But I will not be. Let me say, I will be like in hiding and just use it for my own part and not.
mm-hmm.
Of course, I help people, but it is not that I like. I will say, okay, I'm, for example, the avatar, and you need to listen to me, and I will help, and I will defend, or whatever, and be pompous about it.
Oh, okay, that way. Like the follower of Aang, so the one after Aang with I forgot her name. Because there's a sequel to the After the Last Airbender. And she's a bit very ambitious about being the Avatar.
Yeah,
Korra.
well,
Korra.
it's more that I am the opposite of it. I
Passive. Like you want to use your powers to help the ones you love, but not like save the world and
well,
be out
say
there. Or
it's more like people know that I will be the avatar, but it is not that I will use my powers to have success and get all the money of the world in that way. If I
oh
can
no
say
no
it like
no, I
that.
don't. I get that. I get that. No worries.
So there was also a movie of Avatar. Have you ever seen it?
Or don't talk about it. It's a really bad movie. But I can talk about it. But I prefer. Most fans will not try to talk about it because it's one of the worst live action movies ever. Um. So yes, I've seen it, and I've cried from the inside for hours after that seeing that movie. And yes, I've seen it, and it was a horrible experience. It was really bad.
But there's also, and I just saw that on YouTube last week.
Okay.
Netflix is also doing. I don't think it. I don't know if it is a series or it is a movie, but I saw a new trailer for Avatar. I don't know if you have seen it already, but
I about it. It's another live action. I think I'm also not sure whether it's going to be a series. I thought it was go. I think it's going to be a series, but I've only seen the poster, the promotion poster with the flying bison Appa on it and the squad. But only like their silhouettes, so I've not seen a proper trailer yet.
I shall see
So
if I can send you the link because I think I still have it somewhere.
yeah,
Um,
sure. I would love to watch it and see if it's. I mean, if anything is going to be better than the movie.
I think it will be because this is more like Asian based. Jackie Chan's plays in it.
Oh wow! Oh, it's okay.
So
It's really better. I hope they're also gonna do the ethnicity a bit better, cause the live action movie thing they didn't do that right.
what
Like
I think of from the movie is that it was very American.
yes, it is very American, but maybe even worse than American actually, because they didn't capture like no seriously. So first of all, the animation was crap. And I mean with that, so you had, well, for example, you had one scene and you had like multiple guys, like multiple earthbenders, and they had to like move a lot with their legs and their arms and whatever in order to move one little piece of rock. Like, and in the real universe, the Avatar universe, like the cartoon, if you have so many earthbenders together and they would do such a sort of dance, they would make a sort of new Chinese wall basically out of the ground instead of you like sending out a little piece of rock. Yeah, and the animation was just very weird. The fire looked strange. The whole it looked just very weird. And also the characters didn't act properly, I would say. They act a bit without emotions. And Aang was also very strange casted. I think they only casted the person to play Aang because that person could actually do martial arts, but that's it. Because the person can do martial arts, they just decided to get that person. Ugh, it's really bad.
We what I was surprised of, because I was doing a little bit of research for this episode, there were also a lot of very known actors who did voiceovers, like Mark Hamill and Jason Isaac. What are your thoughts about that?
Well, I did not think too much about it actually. So I didn't look much into the voiceovers or because I watched the whole thing in Dutch when I was a
Mm.
kid, and I only seen some scenes in English. So I'm familiar with a different cast, like a different voice cast, which I don't think are famous people, at least not here. So I cannot really say much about it, sadly enough.
So what I noticed in the first part of the anime was that the fire and water nations are at war, but that in the end it became the fire nation against all the other nations. Can you tell me something about that war?
That has been a while since I've like noticed. I think it actually not per se started with the Water Nation. I think it started with like the Earth Nation. If you look at the history, but I think it started. Oh my god, that was because of this. Like you have a few avatars before Aang. You had one guy who lived in the Fire Nation, and his best friend was going to be the new Fire Lord. And that Fire Lord is the father of Ozai. And I only know from the comic books, because they don't explain that very well in the cartoon. Because there's also a comic series of this universe. But there was something going on. I think they disagreed on how they viewed the world, and then one of them started fighting the Earth Nation. But indeed, the scenes, indeed, like the anime, indeed starts with Fire Nation attacking the Water Nation. But at that point, the war was already going on for quite a while, and they already annihilated the Air Nation by that point.
Yeah.
Of course.
Well, during the whole anime anime series, we saw Aang and Soko and
Okay.
Kitara, yeah,
Yeah.
going to different places to find masters who can help Aang with developing his powers of the bending. Is there any favorite place that you say, I really like that?
Oh, you mean the place that I visited? Really difficult. I've been to very beautiful, beautiful places. Um, I would say the place where they visited, and where they met like the moon spirit. That place, I think it was the North Pole. That one was very, very pretty. That place. And I would love to visit that area. It's like full of everything is almost made from ice and snow, and it's beautiful. It's probably very cold, but very pretty at least. And I think I also would love to visit the Earth Kingdom, but probably after the fall of like this corrupted police they're having there. But yeah, I would also love to visit that. I also think, oh yes, I know of one place I would love to visit. It's a very secret place where Aang and Zuko went, and they actually had the two remaining dragons of the world there. And it's like, and also there's like a very tiny community there, like I don't forgot what they called, but they like worship the two remaining dragons that Iroh has said to so-called slain, but he said that in order to protect those dragons. That was one of the most beautiful places, as well as scenes. So I also would love to visit that particular place.
I don't know if you going to conventions or comic cons or events for where Avatar will be, or if you do it yourself. And talking about cosplay
Mm-hmm.
of the Avatar, do you see that much around it, or?
So I haven't been to a conference that recently because of, well, you know what.
Yes.
Um, but before that, I went to a few ones, and I don't see a lot of Avatar cosplay, sadly enough. If I do see cosplay, then it's usually of either like Zuko or Katara, Sokka, sometimes Aang, Toph also sometimes, like just the main squad. I do have to say that at one place, specifically like somewhere in 2019, I went to like more of an medieval conference, and it was actually a whole like a very dedicated cosplay. Like there were a very nicely built cosplay thing of Katara and Sokka. Like it was really well done. Like the whole cos was really well done, and yeah, that was at least nice to see. But there were not a lot of other people who did that. I did see characters from other shows and other franchises, but Avatar is still quite in the minority. But if people do it, it usually looks good. Otherwise, I can answer the question I asked you earlier about the bending, because
Mm-hmm.
I also have my favorite. So if I could be in the universe, I would love to be a bender as well. But I don't think I'm connected to all of the elements, not specifically. So I think I would rather like I would either be a firebender because I can be very upfront, direct, and a bit impulsive
But that's
sometimes.
also Dutch.
Yeah, it's also Dutch. And so every Dutch person is a fire lord. Firebender. No, 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 no. Or a waterbender. And no, not because I'm Dutch. So that's how we keep the North Sea out of out of reach. No, 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 no. Uh no, or a waterbender, cause I like to help people in my own way. I like to try to not like really heal people, cause I'm not able to do that, but at least attempt to help them. Sort of again the nurturing part again. And I'm also quite an emotional person, and I think that's sort of related to water. So that's why I think either fire or water would should be better, because I'm not too spiritual, I would say, to be an airbender. And I'm not too much the ground down to earth to be an earthbender. So I either would be very explosive, I guess, or be very emotional. One of the two. One of the two elements.
Okay,
Yeah.
nice. How big of a fan base does Avatar have in the Netherlands? Do you have any idea?
I don't have an idea, but I think it's huge. Because most friends I've just mentioned Avatar to, they're immediately very enthusiastic about it, and they just keep talking passionately about Uncle Iroh and this and this and this. So I think the fan base is very big because at least my generation grew up a lot with Avatar, and I think the generation after that also. And it was a very massive thing, and it had like the best storyline ever. And yeah, and there's so many things that we as children learned from the show. So I think it's actually huge, but like I cannot give you any exact numbers or anything, but I think it's yeah, quite big in here.
Well, I do know that they have won a award for the storyline writing, and they even call it the best storyline ever in uh, the movie and cartoon world.
I think I would agree on that. It's a very big statement, of course. Like it's the best storyline ever. That is, of course, a very big statement, but I do agree on that.
Yeah, and I
So
think that's it's
yeah.
also because, of course, the lessons that there is in, and also the yeah, it's I think everyone can learn something of it.
Yes, there's so many very impactful scenes, and there are also some YouTubers that I watched that actually have a very in-depth analysis of the whole show. And I watched those videos, and I came to realization like, oh my god, this is also something that they like learned us as children, and all these other things. And the very good thing of this show, by the way, is that it's able to, even when you're like older than 12, it still captivates you. And I think that's a very strong point. It doesn't treat the people that were currently like around 10, 11, 12, whatever. It doesn't treat them like real, like little children that do not know better. They actually treat them like sort of adults. And I think that's very good of the show. It it doesn't try to sugarcoat things too much. It still has death in the show, or even depression, mania, war. It's like that's the whole concept. It's war. It's so grim, and it still has some very light-hearted, funny moments in between there. So, sorry, I went in a tantrum right there.
That's okay. What do you think about the friendship between Aang and Katara and Sokko and Zuko and everyone else?
They are each of these friendships are unique. So the friendship between Aang and Katara is way different than Aang and Zuko or Sokka or Toph or whatever. It's very different. And so let's start with the first one. So the Aang and Katara. I really like how they developed. So it's quite clear from the start. It's Katara is going to be like the love interest, and yeah, they eventually get together and la la la, but they actually build it up. It's not, they don't push it. They really slowly build their connection up. And it's also nice to see that Ang in first actually sees Katara as a sort of mother for him, because she is nurturing him, helping him, and learning him about this new world he just sort of stepped in. And I really like that. But slowly he sort of understands things and has to learn how to be the Avatar. And it's nice to see him being more independent, and I see him also seeing Katara different from not anymore as like a mother or anything, but more as a friend, and then eventually more than a friend. And you see that develop throughout the whole story. And I really like their interactions, and they also have some collisions in their beliefs sometimes, and I think that is quite normal for a good friendship. But they eventually, of course, it's all alright, and they make up, and everything is fine. So yeah, and they have like it's a very good friendship, and eventually, of course, becomes more, but it's very nice.
I do think that's also because Ang is developing himself as well, like he's maturing.
Yes, he's maturing, and he only in the start, he of course needed Katara to sort of like learn him about the world and how stuff works. But at a certain point, he knows enough to indeed be more independent and more mature, and yeah.
So what about the other friendships? you were talking about.
Yes, I was going to that. Okay, so next up would be Ang with Sokka. So I see them actually sort of as a sort of brothers friendship, which they technically are sort of, in my opinion. Um, because they just like poke fun at each other, and I don't know, they are sort of the comical duo, and I think that's also needed in this kind of show with all the war and stuff going on. So have some fun, and it's really nice to see these two guys who can actually be very playful, childish with each other, and that's kind of needed for the show as well, I think. But also a bit more in-depth connection because they can really talk to each other about certain stuff they struggle with. There's, for example, one episode where I think Sokka talks with Aang, and they are sitting on the top of a waterfall. And below in the waterfall, you see Toph talking to Katara or just talking to each other. And I think that is, or it's, yeah, I think it's something like that, or the opposite. But anyway, there was like, I think there was, is that someone was with Toph and someone was with Katara, and Katara and Toph had like an argument, and then Sokka talked, I think, with Toph about that he sees Katara as a sort of mother, and the other side also says they never had a mother, so it's very complicated and that all those kind of stuff, and actually make up. So it's very nice to see that Sokka and Aang are also able to really have an in-depth conversation, but also with others, and helping together to get a team like on one line. So they have a very good friendship, basically, what I'm trying to say. They have also with Toph, which is a bit more complicated. Because Toph is, well, completely opposite. So they already meet in a quite complicated situation where there's a sort of competition going on, and Toph is of course an earthbender, but she can barely feel Aang because he is an airbender, so he's very light on his feet. Thus twinkle toes. um, and at first it's a sort of playful sort of connection. They don't really connect too much, but later on they are really growing to each other. And actually, Toph learns him earthbending, but he also learns to be a bit more tougher. Also because of Toph, and Toph learns to be a bit more softer and a bit more understanding, like Aang is. And then with Zuko, Zuko is that is a completely complicated friendship by itself. Because Zuko wants, at the start of course of the show, he wants to capture the Avatar and be a prince again, whatever. But eventually they become sort of, due to circumstance, they eventually sort of become friends. But of course, they don't immediately trust each other because of the past, which makes sense. And it's only after some kind of ordeal happens that they actually grow to each other and they become friends. And they can also discuss a lot of stuff. And of course, it's even more complicated because Aang has to discover how to like stop the father of Zuko, which is
Okay.
quite complicated.
Well, I
So
have
this is a
been
very
through
complicated
my
and also
notes,
very unique
and
friendship that they have,
is
basically.
there
So each
something
one has
you'd
their
like
own
to
story and
add?
each one has their own things, basically.
Maybe something I didn't mention or you still like to mention?
Uh, what should I add then? Yeah, so oh yeah, I was actually curious more in this
I
case more
thought I
about
did, but it
you.
is quite a
Did
while
you
I
watch
did that.
actually the Korra
Because
series?
um
So the
it
series
was on
after The Last
Netflix,
Airbender ended. Did you watch that?
and I remember watching Avatar The Last Airbender, and it's still on, so I probably also watched Korra Legend then, and but it is quite a while ago.
Okay, yeah, for me it is also quite a while ago, but I'm also a bit curious. Did you like it? Did you not like it? Or what is your opinion on that? Is it like a good continuation of the whole universe, or do you think
Um,
it's more on its
I'm
own?
a little bit embarrassed to say this, but
Okay.
I don't quite remember well what the whole storyline is right now. I was more focused on Avatar. Maybe this is a reason again to watch it again. So who knows?
For the next video. Next
Yeah.
episode, yeah. Then Korra. Okay, okay. Then I get that. Yeah, because I personally think that Korra is quite. It has a very different feeling from the Avatar, the Last Airbender. Way different, because
Yeah, I had that too.
Yes. Okay, that at least you can remember that it felt different. That is important. Yeah, but the characters are also way different. They are older. The world is a bit different, and of course, Aang is dead. So,
Yeah, I remember that, yeah.
And only a few of the crew still lives. So it's only, I think, Katara and Toph. Maybe you do know that, but yeah. So that was at least nice to see them back. I think Korra might be even more dark than after the Last Airbender. Yeah, do you remember the scene that Korra was like lost all her avatar bending skills basically due to some poison that was stuck in her
Yeah,
against
I
her will?
remember that, yeah.
Yeah, that was something else. So so that was a scene I will never forget when that happened. So, and also some the suicide with the two waterbender guys on the boat, or bloodbenders. They were both bloodbenders on the boat, and they basically suicided. So, it's grim. It's really grim. But yeah. So
Maybe
that's
we
sort of
still
my
can
opinion
talk
on
a little
Korra. It's
bit
like it's
of
very good.
Mai,
It's
because
if you still like the
Mai was
universe, I would
a
also say that people should
different
watch
kind
it
of a character.
if you have it
Oh
already.
my.
But it's very
Yes.
dark.
Didn't she end up with Zuko?
Yes. But can I give a spoiler based on the comics?
Mm-hmm.
They broke off.
Wasn't that also not in the series a little bit already?
They eventually broke up. So
Wasn't
yeah,
that
that happens. Yeah, they broke up during the series, but then they got back together in the last episode. And then in the comic, when for the continuation, they again like sort of broke off. So yeah.
Do you read much
So that's at least from what
comics
I
of
can recall.
Avatar?
I'm not I'm not sure whether that happened after they found his mother or like before. I can't recall. Yes, I actually read a lot of it. Well, it has been a few years ago, of course, but I read quite a lot. So I read mostly just everything after the show ended. I read just all comics of that. But I was mostly curious to where Zuko's mother was, so I mostly read that part. But there's also a lot of other interesting things that happened in the comics that are sad enough not shown in the cartoon. But I mean, the ending is still good, so I'm not gonna complain. I should not complain. But in the comics, there's a lot of stuff that also happens.
Mm.
And you see a lot of more development also of the characters. You also see, for example, Toph open up her own like metal bending academy. For example, so that is very nice of her to see, like her kind of development. You also see some the again, just the whole mother ordeal basically. You see the whole explanation on that part, what happened and where she is, and all these things. And a ton of other like subplots, which are highly interesting. So again, if you're a fan of the whole series and universe, you should really read the comics
Can
of
you
it because
talk a
it's
little bit more
really
about
well
those
written. You will have still
subplots?
the same characters, of course, and it's very captivating actually. Oof. Well, let me think. Again, been a while ago, but I do recall one thing is that you know the sister of Zuko. We went a bit cray cray at the end in the show. Yeah, okay, yeah, you do. Actually, in the search to the mother, she's actually being also used to find this person, but to find the mother because they don't want her help. And they actually also contained her like in a sort of chair, completely constricted to move anyway. But sadly, the thing is that she somehow escapes and causes a lot of trouble. And that is also quite a running theme in at least that sort of chapter. And it's also a certain group that's also wreaking havoc. But I'm trying to remember, but it's
What do
sorry,
you
it
like
has been a while ago,
most
so it's really
about
hard to
Avatar?
remember. But there, at least trust me,
That
there
is
are
a
like
difficult one.
multiple like subplots during the whole thing. All of it, no. I wish I could just answer that. Um, what do I like the most? Can I say multiple things? Because
Yeah,
it's
of
really hard
course.
to.
Of
Okay,
course.
good. Okay, that's. I'm glad. Um, I would say the lessons that are shown in the show, but also in the comics. These are such important life lessons that yeah, there's rarely any showcasing that basically or explaining some stuff. So I really like the fact that they do that and actually show the dark side of people and the good side. But also just purely love the comedy and the whole universe of bending and how is it all set up and how it all makes sense. And also, I've not talked about this yet, but I would love to talk a bit about this. Is how much there's so much effort that has been put in this show besides the storyline. Like there's so many little details in a lot of episodes about references of the Asian culture. So like certain pots, certain traditional things. There's so much detail and also love that. I didn't notice before, but after I watched some videos, I realized that there's so many references to Asian culture things. And also they use like also Asian letters in their some of these like wanted posters that you see during some episodes or some other things. You will see that it's like proper Asian. I think it's. I'm not sure which kind of if it whether it's Chinese handwriting or Japanese
Were
Yeah.
the
or
two
something
dragons
else,
also not
but
two
it
Chinese
might be
dragons?
Chinese, or Mandarin, or I'm not very familiar with that. But
Weren't
it's
the
like
two,
proper. Yeah, that's very okay. Let's go to Chinese dragon, sure. Yeah. About what?
you were talking about the whole details in.
Oh yes. Yeah, there's a lot of details. Yes, yes. But I didn't say anything about Chinese dragons yet. But the dragons are well Chinese based as well. No, but I just like these details, and also the bending style. So you see that the waterbender moves differently than a firebender, and that is because they are both based all on different fighting styles, which are again Asian. So and just it's hard to really say all these references, but it's just there's a lot of details in there, and there are way better people who can explain it more proper than I can because I'm not an Asian culture expert or anything. But there is so much detail and so much dedication and so much love in the show, and also just the funny moments of Avatar are also one of my personal like favorites of any show ever. So there's one scene. I think you should know. I think everyone knows it. It was Sokka and the mushroom.
Oh
When he's the drunk
gosh.
cactus. Yeah, mushroom. Or the cabbage man. My cabbages. Oh, sorry. But yeah, there's so many. There's so many very typical moments. See, you know this moment because they're so funny. They're very unique and funny, and they always make me laugh again if I think about it. I get immediately very happy. So I'm
And
very. So I also like that the show is able to do that. So I also love that about the show. So like all these very unique moments, but also more the emotional moments. Like, you know the song from Uncle Iroh when he went. He had like a very beautiful dedicated episode to him that he was in Ba Sing Se, or like Earth Kingdom at least, and he was walking around and he helped some people out in the village, and eventually he like walks up to the tree, like to a hill with a tree. He places a picture of his son, and he's like, if I could help you." And then he's like, you have like the music, like Soldier Boy. I don't know. It is really, it's one of the most touching moments ever. I will never forget that. And the more sad thing about that moment is that the voice of the English Uncle Iroh actually passed away. And that's actually on the credits. You can see that he passed away. Sad. So sad. So, oh. But yeah, but it's that such a show is able to really grab your feelings and turn it around and make itself so memorable after all these
well,
years.
then
I think that's
it was
such a power, and
very
that's
nice
also
to
why I
talk
love
to
it.
you
It's so
again,
I can
Olga,
talk about
and
this for hours,
thank you
so
for
I'll stop
joining
for
me.
now. But yeah, but basically that.
Yeah, well, maybe till another time.
No problem. It was fun. I hope so.
Let's make that just. Dear listeners, I'd like to thank you for listening to this podcast. I hope you like it, and I try to be diverse as much as I can. Tell me what you think, how I'm doing with this podcast. If you have any tips for me, how I can do things better, let me know. If you'd like to talk about this episode or want to comment on this episode, you can reach out on Podbean, the Facebook group, the YouTube channel, and the Discord server of Orenda Talks Fantasy and Sci-Fi. And I also have a Twitter account especially for this podcast at OTFASP. Orenda Talks Fantasy and Sci-Fi is also to listen, follow and subscribe on Podbean, Spotify, Google Podcast, the Facebook group and the YouTube channel. The next episode we will talk about is Babylon 5. I'm your host Orinda. Thank you for listening and I will see you next time.